Before Daniel met her, he had already endured a heartbreak that he never thought he'd recover from. His first marriage had ended in a betrayal so cruel that it shattered him. His wife had disappeared without a word, swept away by a whirlwind romance with a military officer she had met by chance in a restaurant. The pain of it cut so deep that Daniel swore love would never find its way back into his heart. But life has a way of surprising us, and one day, against all odds, Daniel found himself falling in love again. Emily had just graduated from university, full of hope and ambition, eager to make her mark on the world. Yet, no matter how hard she tried, the doors to her dreams seemed to remain locked. Rejection after rejection followed her, each one a reminder that her youth and lack of experience overshadowed the potential she was desperate to prove. It was a frustrating cycle, especially since she had worked hard to gain practical skills through internships and summer jobs. One afternoon, after yet another unsuccessful interview, Emily sat alone on a park bench, tears slipping down her cheeks. It was in that moment of vulnerability that Daniel noticed her. He had been strolling through the park with his daughter, Sophia, when he saw the young woman, clearly distressed. Unlike the others who walked by without a second glance, Daniel couldn't just ignore her pain. He approached her gently, asking if she was okay. Emily, hesitant at first, eventually opened up about her struggles, the endless cycle of interviews, the dismissive attitudes of employers, and how male hiring managers would often scoff when she spoke confidently about her skills. Daniel listened, his heart heavy with empathy. Then, as if sensing the weight of the moment, Sophia handed Emily a drawing she had made earlier, a sweet illustration of a cafe with her father at its heart. Emily held it in her hands as though it were a precious gift, a small but unexpected source of comfort in the midst of her frustration. At the time, Daniel ran a small children's development center. Though he knew the role of an administrator wasn't quite the right fit for Emily, he offered her a temporary position. She accepted, desperate for a fresh start in a city far from home and struggling financially. From the very beginning, Daniel was drawn to her. He began leaving small gestures, flowers on her desk, sweet treats during breaks. Eventually he found the courage to ask her out, and to his relief she agreed. Truth be told, she had been intrigued by him ever since that day in the park, when he had shown her a kindness she hadn't expected. Their connection deepened quickly, and within 6 months they moved in together. A year later, much to his own surprise, Daniel proposed. For a man who had once sworn he could never love again, trusting someone enough to build a future together was a revelation. As time passed, Sophia grew up and prepared to attend university in the capital. Despite not being her biological mother, Emily had become an irreplaceable figure in Sophia's life. The bond they shared was undeniable. Meanwhile, Daniel's business flourished, and Emily, who had initially set out to carve her own career path, found more fulfillment working alongside him. Daniel, in turn, was more than happy to have such a capable and devoted partner at his side. Recently they expanded, opening a new branch of the center. Emily stepped in as the temporary administrator, ensuring everything ran smoothly while Daniel focused on a new business venture. The responsibility of managing the center's clubs fell entirely on her shoulders, and she embraced the challenge, often staying late to oversee the evening programs for older children. One of these programs included English lessons taught by a young instructor named Nathan. At first, Emily admired Nathan purely for his professionalism. He was articulate, confident, and excellent at his job. But over time, something shifted. A different kind of awareness crept in, an unsettling attraction she never expected. She fought against it, unwilling to entertain such thoughts. Betrayal wasn't in her nature. Yet, no matter how much she tried to suppress it, the flickers of temptation wouldn't fade. Worse still, she sometimes caught Nathan looking at her in a way that made her wonder if he sensed it too. And that, more than anything, unsettled her. He started calling her boss, in a way that felt less like respect and more like something intimate. His compliments became more frequent, his questions about her personal life more probing. One evening, after locking up the center together, he kissed her. For a moment, Emily forgot everything: her marriage, her responsibilities, her principles. The kiss sent fire coursing through her veins, a mix of pleasure and guilt so intense it made her dizzy. And just like that, a boundary had been crossed. From then on, she couldn't look at Daniel the same way. She found herself comparing him to Nathan. His steady presence, once comforting, now felt dull. His familiar face uninspiring. Nathan, on the other hand, was vibrant, exciting, unburdened. Slowly, resentment began to take root. Daniel, sensing the shift but unable to understand it, watched helplessly as his once affectionate wife became distant, irritable, angry at everything and nothing. Determined to understand what was happening, Daniel found himself sitting in his office one evening, staring at his computer screen. On an impulse, he accessed the security cameras at the center, knowing Emily had a late class that night. The classroom was empty. Frowning, he switched to a different feed, and that's when he saw it. The back room. His wife, kneeling before a man half her age. The shock hit him like a physical blow. His hands clenched into fists as nausea rolled through him. For a moment he couldn't breathe. Silently, he recorded the footage onto a flash drive, closing his eyes and pressing his fingers against his eyelids, as if trying to force the image out of his mind. But it burned into him, unshakable. That night, when he returned home, Emily greeted him as if nothing had changed. She even kissed him on the cheek. Daniel recoiled, the memory of the footage flashing behind his eyes, filling him with a disgust so sharp it made his skin crawl. That night he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. By morning, a plan had begun to form, a plan for revenge. Daniel carefully set the stage, calling it a celebration for their latest business expansion. He invited Emily to a restaurant, reserving a private room where an unexpected revelation awaited her. He had made a deal with the administrator, an expensive arrangement, but one he had no regrets about. This wasn't just dinner, it was justice. Emily arrived, unaware of what lay ahead, high-spirited and excited about work, sharing updates about Sophia's life and reminiscing about their early days together. The evening unfolded smoothly, the ambience warm and pleasant. Then, as they toasted to new beginnings, Daniel stood up, glass in hand, and launched into a heartfelt speech. Just as he spoke his final words, the screens around the room flickered to life. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. Emily turned toward the screen, her expression morphing from blissful ignorance to sheer horror as the footage played. The undeniable proof of her infidelity filled the room, and within seconds she fled, tears streaming down her face. What followed was a grueling divorce, filled with legal battles, property disputes, and desperate attempts on her part to manipulate the situation in her favor. She pleaded, bargained, and begged for forgiveness, but Daniel was unmoved. When the dust finally settled, relief washed over him. Sophia, who had once admired her stepmother, saw her for who she truly was and severed all ties. As for Nathan, the moment he caught wind of the scandal, he disappeared. He cut off all contact, quit his job, and left her to pick up the pieces alone. Emily managed to secure a small apartment, but happiness eluded her. No matter how much she wished to undo the past, the weight of her choices followed her, like a shadow she couldn't escape. Some mistakes, she learned, are irreversible.